Well, hey, everyone. We have a great time today planned as we get to do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. So if you've been a regular listener to our podcast, thank you. We're so thankful you are. If you haven't, then maybe this is your first time. It's a great introduction to this. But today we are going to get to spend some time with Cody Cockrell. And you might say, well, why Cody Cockrell? Well, he's a great guy in and of itself, but the reality is, too, we have this awesome opportunity to call him as our next student pastor. And we wanted you to get to know him a little bit more deeply than what we can do in just a short video. And so we're dedicating really this podcast. Logan is here as well as we get to interview him to really get to know Cody and his story. And so we're excited about to get to do this today.
Yeah.
So let's start with just the basic question, kind of where are you from and
For sure.
early part of your story, all of that.
Yeah, so I'm from Mesquite, Texas. Grew up in the suburbs of Dallas. I had a really cool childhood. Working class family. Mom and dad both had jobs as we were young. For a short stint of time, my dad was actually a youth pastor as well. We grew up in the Assemblies of God church, and it's kind of where I cut my teeth on getting to know the Lord.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you talk about mom and dad. Talk about what your home looked like growing up. You have siblings, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You were the middle child.
I was the middle child.
That plays into
Yep.
it. Yep, for sure.
And if you know me or have gotten to know me, it all makes sense. So I have an older brother and a younger sister, Justin and Sarah. They're awesome. They're awesome people. My dad, my dad was kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none type guy. Truck driver, youth pastor. He also was a volunteer firefighter for many years, which kind of comes into play in our childhood because as we've grown up, my brother and sister kind of took on that role as well. My sister was a firefighter for several years until she started having kids and wanted to kind of pull back on that. My brother's still a firefighter, and my sister's husband's a firefighter, so it's kind of cool. We have this family that's got this heart to serve the community, the local community, their cities and stuff. And then I, as the rebel that I was, went off and joined the military.
Middle child right there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about growing up just a little bit. And what would you say you were like as a kid?
Oh, man. I was absolutely a rebel as a child. I was the skateboarder, had all kinds of friends.
Best trick you ever landed as a skateboarder?
A 360 flip.
Okay.
Wow.
The most incredible moment of my life. I spent so many years skateboarding from 13 until today. I still skateboard.
You still skateboard today?
Oh, yeah.
And you're not in the hospital at random times?
I've reeled it in a little bit. So
Who's your favorite boarder historically?
You know, I have such a cool story, but we don't have time for it today.
Okay.
But I met Tony Hawk for probably 15 seconds.
Wow.
And Tony Hawk was never my favorite, but it was the most incredible moment. One of the most incredible
you had
moments.
a couple of other credible moments.
There's some
Yeah,
other
there's
things.
some good
Yeah,
things.
but it was so surreal. I was passing him in an airport, and I was like, hey, Tony Hawk. And he looked back, and he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, you impacted my childhood. Thank you. And he's like, right on. And that was it. And
That's
it was
so
just
cool.
such a cool experience.
It's funny because I actually hear that so many people don't recognize who
Yeah,
he is.
that's kind of
Yeah.
the meme
half the
online.
time. Yeah, it's so funny. Okay, so skateboarding, right? So you grew up skateboarding. What other? You said you were a rebellious child, so
Yep.
kind of had a wild streak to you, or
Well, no, not in the sense that I had a wild streak, but I just didn't really care for, kind of the status quo, if you will. I wasn't really big as a child into sports. I didn't play anything. I played golf in high school, which was, awesome nowadays. It really paid off. But didn't play many sports, didn't have big groups of friends. Telling you guys, no one ever believes me, but I tell the story of being in high school, and I was just not a people person in high school. I was definitely a recluse. I didn't like to be there. But yeah, it was just kind of me. I didn't like waking up in the mornings. My life has changed incredibly since.
I was gonna say that's like
being
a 180
It's-
from who you
yeah.
are today.
Yeah,
So that's,
it's really fun to sit here and kind of reminisce on.
let's talk a little bit. You said you were involved in the Assemblies of God Church. You grew up going to church and consistent with that. What does that look like for you and your family growing up?
Yeah, so we went to one of the Assemblies of God churches in Mesquite. My dad worked there. Like I said, he was the youth pastor for I believe a few years. I was very young, probably somewhere in between 7 to maybe 10 when that all happened. But went to camps there, did the youth stuff for a while, and then kind of left because they just didn't really fit in well at the time. And there was a gap, if you will, in my resume from going and being present in the church from, I'd say, maybe my middle school years until kind of my middle high school years, when some friends of mine actually kind of roped me back in and kind of got me back on track, if you will.
Talk about that moment a little bit. What about these friends, and how did that all work?
Yeah, so I had some incredible friends growing up, and believe it or not, this one particular friend that I'm talking about, my mom and his mom were pregnant with us at the same time when they were working for this church.
Wow.
And so, the child process, kind of passed through, and we became good friends growing up. And he remained at that church, and then my parents and I, we kind of left, and my dad started more of a side gig at home where he discipled young adults and started kind of his own ministry in that. But we hadn't seen each other in years, and we kind of linked back up in high school, and he's like, hey, we're having this cool, youth night over at church. Love to invite you. And that's kind of what steered me back onto track. It's a funny story. The church itself was doing a drawing for students that were brought in. And if you came to this event, you were able to take a ticket and, kind of put it in the fishbowl, right? And they were giving away, I'll never forget, they were giving away an Xbox and like a PlayStation 2 and some sort of Nintendo product, I think. And every friend that my friend brought, he got to add an extra ticket. So he's like,
nice.
big incentive, big incentive, because he wanted to win this prize. Well, out of all of the students that were there, I couldn't tell you, probably somewhere in the hundreds, my name got pulled out of this bucket, and I won an Xbox. And I remember sitting in this massive church sanctuary, and I called my dad, and I was like, I got an Xbox. We went to Blockbuster, believe it or not, that night to find a game, and my parents were like, all right, let's rent a game. Blockbuster. Man. Hey, magical place,
Blockbuster. There you go.
Was.
You just took a lot of people back when you mentioned Blockbuster.
Yeah, there's actually one left in the United States.
Yes.
It's just like this little niche thing. That's so funny.
That's so crazy.
That's crazy. Okay, so like literally from winning an Xbox, you were back in church
Back
then.
in church, yep. So such a cool kind of timeline. So back in church, started to kind of get back in the swing of things. I always had my dad was there to kind of guide me through my relationship with Christ and growing in that. So I always had somebody awesome to fall back on. But we had this incredible youth pastor. I still keep up. Well, I don't talk to him anymore, but I follow him on Instagram and stuff. And he's a great guy. He's crushing it in Pennsylvania right now. But started going to the camps and stuff and doing all the fundraisers there so I can get to camp. And I remember that was probably one of the camps that I went to when I was there. And I may have caught the tail end. I may have been able to go to 2. I can't remember. But was where real transformation in my life happened. Because I always believed, right, as a kid, I always was like, yeah, I mean, we came from a good household, and I'd consider us to have some real generational faithfulness in our house. And we're truly blessed in that regard. But real transformation in my life happened as a teenager at a youth camp.
It's awesome.
You talked about discipleship at home and your dad not only discipling you, but others through the home as well. Talk about some of the things that he did that kind of still impact you and maybe how you look at discipleship today.
Oh, yeah. Well, you read it in so many family books nowadays, and all these different ministries trying to help repair the home and kind of put people on track with their children and stuff. But I did not know what was happening in my household when I was there. But as I look back on it and I see, I'm like, wow, my parents really kind of plugged us in properly. We always had dinner at the table. We always kind of, I didn't know we were talking about life, but there we were, talking about life. My house was the house, it's funny to think back on, that everybody came over, right?
Yeah.
There was a certain feeling there of safety, security, whatever it was, whatever environment my parents created. I pray so often to replicate that for my children in the future. But there was this unique calling on both of my parents to just connect with my high school group as kids growing up, mine, my brothers, my sisters. It's funny because when we were kids growing up, my parents never wanted anybody in the house. They're like, y'all are crazy, get outside, right? And that was kind of a 90s kid thing. But as we were getting older, so many of my friends wanted to just talk to my parents, and it was just kind of wild to think about. When I'm there in the moment, I'm just like, man, I'm trying to get some Kool-Aid and go to bed. Like, why do you want to talk to my parents? I live with these guys. But when I look back, I'm like, man, what an impact it made. Those kids then, right, that were at my house, that every opportunity they got, they'd come over and sit at the couch and talk to Wayne and Audrey, right? I'm still close with those people today. And they still come to my house as grown men and want to sit down and talk with my mom and talk with my dad and just talk about what's going on in their life. And I've always been able to witness that and see, it's just without even trying, what my parents were able to do. And of course, I'm sure there's a lot of trying behind the scenes, right? But what they were able to create and foster and maintain had to be exhausting as parents, but also, boy, how impacted all of these young men and women's life were through them just sitting at home.
Yeah. Man, I love the encouragement of that. Just thinking about how, we talk about student ministry. We talk about how important certainly that is in the life of the church. Camps, all of those experiences, like in your own life, seems to be incredibly transformational. But also just the day-to-day life and how any of us really can pour into those around us, especially when you think about, you got kids at home that they're bringing their friends over. And I think some parents, just to be aware, just to be present and aware, and then you realize in so many lives there's such brokenness that students are often looking for any adults who would just give them the time of day to listen.
Yeah. When I look back and I think about that, my friends were pretty honest about, some of the things I didn't realize how blessed we were growing up, but a lot of the kids that I went to school with came from broken homes, problems at home and stuff. And I saw that, right? Because my parents, each side of the family, their parents were divorced and it just didn't end well for them. And my dad has always told me this story. He's like, when, your mom and I got married, there was no option. We're getting married and we're going to do this and we're going to stay together, because I got to see, how each of them responded to that brokenness at home. And they responded really so well that, like we're talking about, they were able to be just incredible faith trainers at home. And that's something that we often promote so well here, which I think is incredible, is bringing up parents as the primary faith trainer. I like to think about, in student ministry as I've been a life group leader for so long and then grown into that ministry resident position and then taking it a step further now. It's so incredible to be able to have these relationships with these students. But it's also just as important to seek that relationship with their parents as well, because if I can send a student home in the car ride, right, however that is, if they're leaving church on Sunday or Wednesday and they're leaving here and they're going home and something's stuck and they just need to work that out. If they're not doing it here with us and the life group leaders that love them so well, I pray that they have that conversation in the car ride home or at the house, because if the parent may be distant or have issues with their relationship with God, or there's something going on there, I hope to ignite that. And because we're not just reaching these students, we're reaching their friends, their circles, right, like we talk about, and man, their parents too. It doesn't just stop with them.
It's so good. So good.
Let's fast forward kind of towards the end of high school, and you mentioned going into the military.
Yeah.
So what led to all of that?
So with that same church that I was going to, I remember the first ever mission trip I went on. I went to Jamaica, and it was a working mission trip, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it. No, I'm just kidding.
I hear they have a bobsled team.
Oh man,
Oh,
it's
there you
funny
go.
because we got to see at the end of our trip on this mission trip, we got to see the kind of the resort side of Jamaica. Blown away because we spent our entire time in kind of the working area where we were building houses with the cinder blocks, and it's funny because I never knew this was a thing. There are different types of cinder blocks. Cinder blocks that have like air infused in them, like we kind of see here at Home Depot or Lowe's that you'd purchase. But then there's like straight up cinder blocks that's just dense rock. And that's what they're building houses with out in Jamaica. Rebar, concrete, and cinder blocks. And day after day after day,
That's work.
we're building these houses, just to be I guess, hurricane resistant. But then at night, we'd go out on the streets and share the gospel. And it was insane. It was intense. It was incredible. But why that story is relevant is I was actually working as an electrician at the time after high school. I had a few different jobs. But this one was interesting because, number one, it was incredible. Being an electrician is so awesome. But I was working for this great company. They were putting me through trade school out of high school. And before I go out on this mission trip, it was with a college group. I said youth, but we kind of transitioned that same group of youth, went into a straight college group. And, we grew so incredible together. But I remember I had told this electrical company that I was working for, I was like, hey, look, I've been praying about this, and I really feel a calling to go off and join the military. I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like this is the path that the Lord wants to take me on. And I'm going to take that adventure, but it's we're a year out from time of signing contract and stuff like that. Well, the electrical company that I was working for was not pleased with that at all, which I was kind of surprised about.
Yeah.
So they got really upset, and they sent me to these faraway jobs, and they just thought that I wasn't going to show up to work. But I was like, no, sir, I'm going. Like, let me go wire these houses up. So I was working, and time came to go to this mission trip to Jamaica, and I'd put in well in advance this vacation time for a week off so that I can fly out to Jamaica, build houses, come back, and start wiring again. Well, it was on the physical calendar. It was on all these different calendars. And time came. I was gone. I went to Jamaica, served there for so long, came back, returned to the job site, and they're just like, Cody, you don't have a job here anymore. And they let me go.
Wow.
And it was a big moment in my life because I was like, man, it's crazy that I went off to do ministry and I got laid off and terminated from this job. It kind of shook me up a little bit. I was like, this doesn't seem right. So I found some odd-end work in between then and going to the Marine Corps, and I ended up leaving in December. Oh, man, my mom will kill me. I left. I had signed a piece of paperwork to go off to boot camp, and it was December 12th, 2010. I'll never forget that because it was the date before my mom's birthday.
Wow.
And she didn't want me to go anyways. And also, on top of that, the one contract that I wanted so bad was an infantry contract. I don't know why. I just felt led to sign the infantry contract. And I remember my mom telling me that like 2 months before shipping off, she's like, well, at least you're not going to the infantry. And I was like, Mom?
Merry Christmas.
Happy
And
birthday.
happy birthday.
She was not pleased with the decision there. Little did she know it turned out to be incredible. But that's what kind of led me into that story. Should I continue on that?
Go ahead, man. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So funny. It's important to understand to the viewer, right, that God is sovereign in all things. And when I was trying to leave for the Marine Corps, and trying to get that infantry contract, believe it or not, back in 2010, it was really hard to get an infantry contract. I was kind of taken aback. So the recruiters were like, hey, we can't get you an infantry, but we can get you in the next best thing, military police. And I was like, okay, that sounds kind of cool. I'll do it, right? So I signed this MP contract to leave. Well, I was playing basketball the week before I was going to leave to boot camp, and I broke my wrist.
Oh,
my God.
And so I went in, and the recruiters were like, "Oh man, that's bad for them, right? Because that affects their bottom line." So they're like, "Well, you can't leave, obviously, because we can't send you to boot camp, for like 6 weeks or so." So they had to rip up my contract and just basically told me to come back. And so that's exactly what I did. I left and I came back, and they're like, "Oh wait, sorry, let me back up a little bit." After that happened, a couple weeks later, one of the recruiters called me, and they're like, "Cody, you're not going to believe this." And I was like, "What's up?" It's like, "I've got an infantry contract on my desk right now, waiting for you to sign." And I was like, "I'm on my way." So I went in, arm in sling, and I signed an infantry contract. And they're like, "Yep, you're shipping off December the 12th." And I was like, "Great." And I walked out, and I was like, "Oh, no."
Oh, no.
I was so scared. I didn't tell my mom for a long time, like October. So
at least
that
you
year.
wait till December 11th.
Right.
That would have been far worse.
So,
Did you have a history of military in your family or anything? Like what about the Marines was just like, yeah, that's what I'm doing?
okay, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Not really. My great grandfather was a Marine, but I didn't find out that until I signed up for the Marine Corps. So I didn't know him that well. He was an incredible man once I kind of figured out who he was. But when my dad came to me one day and he's like, "Hey, did you know that your great grandfather was a Marine?" I was like, "I had no idea." So it was kind of cool learning that. But I didn't have any family history with the Marines. It was just honestly, it's funny. It's something that it kind of we'll get there later on in the testimony, but it was something that I was just praying so much for. And at the time, I was really crying out to God because, being that age and being young, you're just like, what in the world do I need to be doing with my life? And so I went to every recruiting station, each one of them. I went to the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, and the Marine Corps. And the way that the Marine Corps approached me was it was unbelievable. The other recruiters, they were great, and I still respect them and all that serve in that capacity. But when I stepped foot in the Marine Corps office, I just knew that I made the right decision. I knew that was the one to go to. Also, I'm very stubborn, and when I want to do something, I like to do the thing that's the hardest one to do.
Why you signed up for the infantry?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny, too, because I was it's called MEPS, right? It's their medical processing. It's an absolute nightmare to get through. But when you get in there, there was a former Marine he was a medical doctor at this point in time, and he looked at my paperwork, and he's like, "You're going to the Marines?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "What job, what MOS are you going for?" And this was before I broke my wrist, and I was telling him, I was like, "Well, I'm going to go MP." And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean no?" And he's like, "There's no other job in the Marine Corps except infantry." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because there's avionics, there's electrical work, there's all these different things. What do you mean? And he just looked at me and he's like, no. You need to be in the infantry. And I was like, "Okay, well, I signed the paperwork, so I'm going to go be an MP." But yeah, I kind of saw them and I was like, I know these guys are hard. I know they're tough. I like to test myself, and I want to make sure that if I'm doing this, and again, all the branches, anytime I see any of those guys, thank you for your service. It's incredible. Just serving in the capacity alone is an amazing thing. I'll talk some smack, but at the same time, there's respect there. But that was a big factor. It was number one. It was the way that they handled me walking into that recruiting office. And then also, I knew that they were the toughest, and I wanted to prove to myself that I was a tough guy, and I was not a tough kid. I'll tell you, they made me one, but I wasn't.
I'm sure boot camp had quite a bit to do with that. Yeah. Do you want to get into just kind of your military service and what the Lord was working on in your heart during that time, and how I would love to explore a little bit about how faith and military. Those, I'm sure that's a proving ground.
Oh, yeah. So, boy, let me tell you. So
yeah, jump into boot camp and kind of go from there.
So boot camp's always a big piece because it's a huge transformation time for young men and women that take that step. But like we kind of covered already, I come from, just an incredible, faithful family that when I went, I knew and I understood, that I needed to rely on God heavily. When I left, the loneliness and the fear kind of sits in and it dwells, it dwells on you, and it's really daunting. I remember very vividly, one of the most kind of terrifying pieces of boot camp is landing the plane, getting out, and getting into the bus where they kind of take you to MCRD, is what it's called, MCRD San Diego, Marine Corps Recruit Depot. And they take you on the school bus, and you get to a certain point in time where they make everybody on the bus, put your head down in between your legs and close your eyes. Like you can't see what you're about to go into. And so me and this kid next to me, I remember this young man who's a good kid. We were sitting there, and they're like, all right, get your head between your legs, close your eyes. And they're just screaming up and down this bus, these Marines. And so I'm sitting there next to this guy, and he is just shaking with fear. And I'm like, kind of like grab onto this guy's hand. I'm like, hey man, we're gonna be okay. But I relied so heavily on a couple of I guess really all, it's a shameless plug of our 7521 when I was at boot camp, but the numbers were way higher than 7521. Prayer was such a big piece, and journaling was incredible too. I actually went through the attic recently and grabbed this stack of letters that I sent and received in boot camp. Wow. Because in the Marine Corps you don't use phones. Like there's none of that. It's just snail mail. It's the letter, right? And I had this thick blue book of just me doing what I would have called back then kind of a Bible study. I would have, scripture verses that I had memorized at the time, and I was just writing down all of my thoughts, all of the things that were going on around me, and just kind of relying on the Lord to help me through that process, because it was a genuinely difficult, terrifying process for a young man and the others around me too. And I really, when we kind of started the first couple weeks of boot camp, I just kind of felt the Lord calling me to just talk to other people. Just talk to these other young Marines that I was sitting with. And I remember getting to know some of these guys, and it really helped me so much, because I'm sure you guys have felt this before, but sometimes you can get physically ill from being away.
Yeah.
Like home, family, parents, those relationships that you had such a close connection with, and then you're just completely cut off. In hindsight, 3 months is not long at all, but at the time, boy, I was sick to my stomach being away. And that really amplifies faith. It was another thing that the boot camp experience really kind of helped me do is, number one, I grew very close to the Lord during my time at boot camp, and that relationship has been strong since then. But also, trying to find places to practice that. I've gotten better at, but when I was gone and when I was there, sometimes it's difficult to find a church in California or Hawaii or these different places around the world. So you really have to rely on being in the Word. And kind of when I talk about 7521, when I just talk about praying and journaling and reading the Bible and talking to others about their faith too, there's that famous saying, "There's no atheist in a foxhole," right? It's pretty true. It's pretty true. I got to do some incredible work with different chaplains and stuff, and try and work on sharing my faith with others. And as we do that now here at Parkway and just outside in our communities, when we go out and we practice this outreach, it's really difficult. Even in hard times, it's hard for us as people, I think, sometimes to muster up the courage to talk about something so life-changing, something so transformative like the gospel and salvation.
Yeah.
So a lot of those things came from boot camp. There's more throughout, right? Boot camp, it's funny, boot camp after graduating and moving on, that was the easiest part of the Marine Corps. It got way harder after that.
Man.
And the funny joke is that boot camp, they're required to give you 8 hours of sleep. After that, that's gone. And I had no clue what they could do to me after. You know what I mean? Like 24 hours on post, digging foxholes, staying up all night. Man, I really yearned to be back in boot camp after
That's crazy.
after that. But kind of the way my career, this is the cool thing about God's sovereignty. As I worked through that piece and going to the infantry in boot camp, they kind of grabbed me and pulled me to the side, and they're like, "Hey, you're going to do this," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. What's this?" Right? And so they put me in the room with other Marines, and they started screening us, and we're not really sure what they were screening us for. But they started to screen us and look at some of the stats that we were providing. And I didn't know, but what they were doing was they were checking us out for, it's called, goodness, I don't even really know what it's called anymore, but Presidential Security Detail, basically. We'll call it PSD. And they only select from a pool of infantry Marines. So you had to go in, it's called an O3 open. What that means is you can be, the first two numbers of the infantry contract, MOS, are 03. And then you've got 11, 52, 31, 41, all these different numbers that mean different specialties. But the 11 is kind of the basic infantry rifleman. Well, if you went in with this 03 open contract, they were going to take you basically for 3 years or so and put you in this security detail, kind of build you up to that position. So what was cool was that where I thought I was going to go and do just straight infantry stuff, shoot guns and do all kinds of fun stuff that entailed, they're like, we're going to pull you over here and you're going to learn the security forces side of things, and you're going to stand post and operate kind of in these different facilities in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and learn kind of the ins and outs of what it means to be a security forces Marine. And that was really neat. Now, I would have never gotten that gig and some of the accolades that came with it without having that infantry contract. So it kind of makes me I'm interested when I look back. I'm like, man, it's cool, like the way God kind of ordained that situation where I was just going to go be in military police and, ride out my 4 years and get out and do whatever was next. Instead, I broke my wrist. All the joys that came with that, and did this instead. And it was incredible.
That's awesome.
So, any more highlights of your military career that you think are important for?
One of the cool things that I remember that kind of made me feel like, in the Marine Corps we call them drill instructors, right? So in the Army, I believe they're called maybe drill sergeants, but the guys that run around and scream at you all day for 3 months. Every Sunday, you got the opportunity to practice your religion, right? So there was chapel, walk to chapel, and you would go through a little bitty sermon and get to pray. And one of the things when you left, so there's 3 phases of boot camp really, but in the second phase you go to this place called Edson Range, and it's a different part of California. And you go out there and you lose the amenities that are kind of in San Diego, and you get to live out in this kind of outdoors area where you still got kind of a squad bay and stuff, but less side of the chapel and the things like that. It was less nice, if you will.
Yeah.
And I remember we got to go to this church service when we were there on a Sunday, and it was a big deal. A big group of us were just praying and crying really together about figuring life out in the Marine Corps. And the pastor that was there, he kind of huddled up with us one day, and he wanted to tell us, he's like, look, guys, I know this is hard. I know these drill instructors are really just kind of like ravenous dogs. Truly, that was a good descriptor for them. And he's like, but what y'all don't know is that when we're done with this service and I send you guys off and you go back to your squad bays and you do your things. He's like, your drill instructors are knocking on the back door of the church and they're coming in and praying with me and talking about what's going on in their life. And they're basically helped us to understand that these are normal people and they have a love for Christ too. And it was a huge deal for me because after that, I saw them more as people like me than what they were supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And because of that, it earned me a lot more. I don't want this to sound bad, but basically I got beat up a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I found out that they're normal like me, and I kind of cracked that fourth wall, if you will. And
They didn't like that.
they did not like that.
Yeah, I can
No.
imagine.
And the thing about me is, many of you guys know, those of you watching and you guys too, I love to laugh. Oh man. I'm just so happy. Like, life is so incredible. And the drill instructors hated when you laughed. And what they found out was that everything they do, right, is slightly horrible, but also really funny. And so there's elements of humor in all the things that they do. And man, if I could watch that back and see, some of the things they went through, it would just be so funny. But they found out that I was a laugher. And so they would purposely come up to me and make me laugh.
Man.
And that way they had kind of the free reign to just beat up on me, basically.
Wow.
Let's be real. So, and it was fun because I knew it was coming, but I knew, like, one of them this one specifically, his name was, I don't know who this person is anymore, and I'm sure he's out there doing great things, but his name was Sergeant Francisco, and he knew how to make me laugh, and he would stand in front of me and just stare at me for the longest time and wait while others were doing things, and he just had it out for me. Oh man, he had it out for me. And anytime it's so funny. He would make me laugh, and then he'd be like, "Okay, great. You want to laugh? Now let's do this, right?" So then he'd take me, and I remember one day we were doing this squad bay cleaning kind of situation, and he made me do push-ups and laugh for probably 45 minutes. And when things got less funny, he would come back to me and he'd just like whisper in my ear, "I don't hear you laughing." And I would have to do push-ups and be like, ha, 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 for 45 minutes.
Wow.
It was brutal. But yeah, they really dug into me. But once it was all said and done, there was a mutual understanding. No words needed to be said, but we kind of looked at each other and it was cool. All things were great.
That's crazy.
So you were deployed a couple different areas.
I was on one deployment, but I visited a couple different areas.
Okay, one
Yeah.
deployment, a couple different areas.
Yep.
Yeah. And then what led to your decision to kind of get out of the Marines and
Yes.
do that?
So, one of the cool things that I got to do on my deployment. So after I finished with my security forces piece, they sent me out to an infantry unit, and the infantry unit is definitely intimidating in that I have been doing not their job for 3 years. So when I come in, the security forces kind of promotion structure is faster than a regular infantryman structure. So a 3-year me, right, would be a corporal, which is an NCO, and you would come in, and a corporal in the fleet, the infantry, would be expected to lead several Marines, minimum 12, right? So you are an infantry Marine, and you learn to be an infantry Marine, but it is not until you experience that side of the Marine Corps that you learn what that actually means.
Yeah.
So I knew I was coming in with a big job to do because I'm coming in and being assigned to lead Marines that are getting off a deployment. At this point in time, I'd never deployed, never done anything outside of security forces. So these guys are coming back from a deployment. I'm supposed to lead them, and they've been doing infantry for 3 years, And so when I meet these Marines, they do not like me. They do not care for me. I have not been sharing in their misery. We're not growing together. So I had my work cut out for me. So what I did then was I met one of the the guys that was directly under me, and he was what we would call in the Marine Corps a salt dog. This dude was good to go, right? He was the picture perfect infantry Marine, and he did not like me. But I came to him, and he was a rank under me, and he had a lot of time before he was going to be able to promote up. So I went to him and I said, "Hey, look, you know how this goes. You know what we're supposed to be doing here. I know, but I don't know, and I want you to teach me." So I had to really humble myself to this guy who was a lower rank than me, which at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter, and try and learn their ways. And so he's like, okay, so this dude put me through all the ringers of Marine Corps infantry, and everybody listened to him. He was, like I said, he was the Marine. I love him and still talk to him to this day. He was an incredible man. And because of that, it's really hard to humble yourself as a Marine. It's a big ego thing. Everybody's got their egos. But coming to him, I think it really shocked him when I came to him and talked to him about learning, the ropes of the Marine Corps. And he really took me under his wing and taught me everything. And because of that, I gained the respect of him, which then in turn gained me the respect of an entire platoon, and then so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And because of that, I bonded, and we went on. We did some crazy training exercises I could never even recreate in my head. Some awesome things that we did together, and he really helped mold me into the proper infantry Marine. And I have so much to thank him for that. But went to some schools, like I was telling you about in Hawaii. Went to some brutal courses to learn how to be a great infantry squad leader. Did that for 2 years and some change because my contract was coming up to an end, and I was still kind of really confused on next steps. The transition process is not easy getting out of the military, but they came to me and they offered me, they're like, "Hey, look, we're going on deployment. You've been training these Marines for 2 years now. We can extend your contract and you can make this deployment if you want." And I was like, no question, sign, right? So I signed on a 5th year, and I went and deployed with my boys. We had a good time, and that's when the transition process really I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. In that deployment, I was able to kind of create courses and classes inside of the Marine Corps, and that was where I got my first real experience in public speaking, if you will. We created this NCO course. It's kind of standard across the Marine Corps, but you have to kind of grab it and make it your own. And we taught this course in Australia, and I was one of the teachers out of, I think there was maybe 6 of us, and there was easily 80 to 100 Marines that we were teaching every week. And it was just me and them. And it was a big auditorium-style classroom, and I was terrified. But I worked that muscle out, and I figured out how to talk in front of people there. And it helped me kind of hone my ability to speak publicly, and I thank the Marine Corps for that too. But next steps were super unknown. I wasn't really sure where I was going to go. I did feel like I needed to leave. That was kind of where I was at through prayer and all of that. I was trying to figure out, okay, Lord, what are my next steps? You've got me here. What's next?
So can I pause right there for
Sure.
a second? Because I think there's some really cool lessons like you just talked about that. And again, you talked about the sovereignty of God and just seeing. So obviously you've got what you just mentioned, public speaking, which is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know a lot of people, that's a hard thing to get over.
Oh, yeah.
Is that fear of public speaking and being in front. And yet, as God is directing your path to put you in front of others in a regular way where you're teaching God's word, whether it's life groups or student ministry, but then also to think about, to go to this Marine that you were just talking about, that looks the part, probably the most intimidating of them, and
yeah.
to say, and to simply, like you said, you humble yourself and you go, first of all, I got to know what I don't know, right? And you recognize you don't have all the answers. What a huge... I mean, you could go down that road for a long time.
Yeah.
But then to go to the guy who, in that world, has the answers and the respect so that as you learn from the best in that regard. I just love all of those things because it reveals what the Lord's been doing in your heart and preparing you for the next phase of the journey and the next phase of the journey. So I just wanted to pull that out. Really cool to see that. So
Thank you for helping me identify that.
No, it's good, man. It's good.
No, that was a big. It was hard for me. It was hard for him. Even coming to him and kind of coming to him with humility like that, he still wasn't really sure about me. And also, those of us that came from the security forces, in a way, you could call it more of a cush opportunity. It was comfortable. And there were a lot of security forces and Marines that came into the fleet to kind of just ride out their contract. They didn't really care what was next for them. But one of the things that is so important in the military and specific to the Marine Corps infantry is that, when they put it in perspective, in all reality, you are responsible for the lives of others.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like that's it. And I could not bear to possibly have, lose somebody on my watch. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where all that challenging humility, right? And then feeling that, knowing that, recognizing that, and saying, okay, this is good. This is a good quality and a good tool to kind of use in the future. Yeah, it was definitely transformative.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so then moving to the next phase of life is really trying to figure things out, praying through that. But I knew my time was coming to an end. One of the things that I knew I was always meant to do in life, from being a child to today, was be a dad. I just always wanted to be a dad, and I think I was 2016, so I was 26 getting out of the Marine Corps, 25, and I knew, okay, look, my knees hurt, and I'm 26 years old. I got to figure this out, because I did this really cool opportunity. It's called TAPS. It's called Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. It was kids who had lost moms and dads in combat, and we served in Washington, D.C. when I was still active duty Marines, and I got connected with some kids that had lost their families, and I spent a lot of time with those children, young children, probably Georgia, my daughter's age now. She's 4. And number one, being with them was incredible, and just being around kids is so cool. But I remember specifically we were doing a Smithsonian trip in D.C., and I was carrying this little girl on my back all day. And I was a tough Marine, but at the end of the day, I'd put her down. I was like, oh man, like I got to have kids quick, because my clock is ticking. My back was sore, my shoulders were hurting. And I was thinking, I've always wanted to just get on the ground and play with my kids in the future someday. So Lord willing, that was kind of where I was wanting to go next. So I got out of the Marine Corps, and I had a buddy, childhood friend, literally probably, what am I now? 35. We have been friends since we were 9 years old.
Wow.
So we have been friends forever. And I was talking to him on the phone. I was like, hey man, I'm looking for a job. I'm getting out of the military. I'm not really sure what my next steps are, but I'm trying to figure that out. He's like, come and work with me at Chili's. So I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. So I went and worked with him at Chili's, which is where I met my wife in 2016. We met there. I remember I could tell you the table that she sat at when she came in. It's table 73 for the audience.
There you go.
And she was the type of guest that came in and just needed so much attention. So much attention. And she'll tell you to this day, I was so frustrated with her. Every time I came back, she needed something. And finally, she'd asked me, she's like, is there a man? She's like, who's the manager? Does this person still work here? This person? And she was the type of girl that was like, oh, yeah, I work at Chili's too. And I was like, okay, look, tell me what you need, because I'm busy. I've got other tables. So she'd asked for a manager, and I went to the office. I said, hey, look, this lady needs to talk to somebody. Please go out there and talk to her so I don't have to go back. And I'd sent my manager out there, and it's hilarious. And he went out to the table, and he came back to me, and he's like, hey, yeah, they're closing up. And he's like, she was asking me about a job. And I was like, oh, man, okay, well, we definitely need people. So hire if you want to. And next thing you know, she's hired at Chili's. And who is the lead trainer on the shift? It's your boy, right? So wow. Chili's was awesome, because Chili's, Brinker, right, the parent family of Chili's, they loved their training programs, and I was so big on that. Coming straight out of the Marines, I loved training people. That was
Well,
just,
you had already been doing that for
Yeah.
years in the Marines at that point.
It was so natural to me
Yeah.
to, and Chili's was good on them too. They recognized that quick. I had great managers throughout my years, but they gave me the opportunity to train this girl at Chili's, and I trained her. And I remember, and she'll always tell the story. It's so funny. I remember I would have to take breaks from her and go to the office with the managers, and like, because it had the, the kind of one-way mirror on the window, and I'd like, hey, I need you guys for something, and I'd walk in and shut the door and be like, oh man, y'all, I need a break. Give me some food or something. I needed a little break from this girl, but little did I know she would be my wife in no time.
Oh, wow.
The Lord certainly has a sense of humor. My goodness, it was so funny to have met her. So we did our Chili's journey together. We met. We were married, and we had Weston in 2019.
Did you have the ceremony at Chili's too?
My dad performed the ceremony,
Oh, wow.
actually, which was so cool. Oh,
Yeah.
man. We did not have the ceremony at Chili's. But when Weston was born, at that point in time, we're still both working at Chili's. We were at the one in Prosper,
Yeah.
which will continue down that road here shortly. But I'll say two of my children have strong ties to Chili's, because Weston got a onesie when he was an infant, and it said something like a baby back rib or something. I don't know. There was some sort of
That's
Chili's
awesome.
Chili's marketing on his onesie, but yeah. So and then Georgia, of course, she was born on Chili's birthday, March 13th, which I can't even make this stuff up. It doesn't even. It's so insane. And then of course we've got William now too at the house, and he is he's not connected to Chili's in any way.
Yeah.
But
How sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know what the
very
future
sad.
holds.
He's been
so
a couple times in
yeah.
his 2 months of life. So, but that then leads to a bunch of things. It leads to us coming to Parkway Hills, if we want to get into that yet, or we
Sure,
can talk a little
yeah.
bit about college, whatever
Yeah,
you want
talk
to do.
through your college time and
Yeah. So I actually, when I was at Chili's, both, again, my sister and my brother were both firefighters, paramedics. And I was like, well, let's give this route a try. I don't know what I want to do with life. I'm trying to figure it out. So I went to EMT school for a while. I graduated from there. And through EMT school, I figured out that I did not want to be a firefighter paramedic at all. It was not my cup of tea. It was
Middle
cool.
child again.
Yeah.
You got them on the top and the bottom.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's-
And
there
I'm
you
kind
go.
of rebellious. I don't want to be
Yeah,
like the family. I want to
absolutely.
be different. So I did that. It was cool, but it wasn't for me. And then Kristen, my wife, was like, she was a whiz at all things college. I've never been a fan of school ever to this day. I've never been a fan of school. But Kristen was like, do you want to go to school? And I was like, well, the military pays for it. She's like, okay, let's get you signed up. And I was
Yeah.
like, cool, what do you do? And she goes online and she gets me signed up for community college. And I start at inside the Dallas College District. I was at Richland. It was incredible. I did 2 years there. And then I finished my bachelor's degree at the University of Texas at Dallas. I was at a college fair at Richland, and like I said, I'm just the language of school is lost on me. But I was at one of the desks. I would only assume it was the UT Dallas desk because that's where I ended up. But I was sitting there, and they're like, "What do you want to do for your undergrad?" And I was like, "I don't know what I want to do, but I want to teach. Can you sign me up for those classes?" And they're like, "Yep, we got you." So next thing you know, I'm at UT Dallas. I get a great degree in interdisciplinary studies is what it's called. But I kind of modeled the entire thing around communications, business communications, interpersonal communications, public speaking, all these different classes because I loved talking in front of people. I loved talking to people, in front of people. As y'all can see right now, I just enjoyed talking in general. It's a lot of fun. So Kristen, I owe so much to her in getting me to college, because if it was not for her, I would have probably never utilized that benefit from the military. That's incredible. My goodness, it paid for the whole degree. So I did that. But also inside of that, should we talk about our piece
Sure.
through Chili's?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk
So,
about.
so this is
Go
all
ahead.
happening while you're working at Chili's.
Yes.
You're
Mhm.
doing
You and
Richland
Kristen both.
College.
Is Kristen at
We're
the same Chili's?
same Chili's, opposite shifts of each other.
Oh, that's
she come
convenient,
yeah. So she's working the morning shift. I come in with Weston in his car seat. set them in a booth, right? And I'm like, all right, finish your tables. I'll clock in, and we just swap.
Wow.
So what would happen was that's exactly what would happen. We would transfer. I mean, it was a hot swap. I'd come in, pass off the car seat. She'd go out, and that's kind of how we lived life for a while.
All while you're doing school at the same time.
School.
Jeez.
Yeah. Y'all know me. I like to hold many buckets at the same time.
As Josh said earlier, 19 jobs at the same time. Yeah.
Something like that. So
More than 2 W-2s in 1 year is a lot on taxes. So I'd like to stop doing that. But yeah, so that's the Chili's experience, which is incredible. But I do remember one day, if anybody is listening to this and they are a server at a restaurant, they know, especially in Texas, how many times they get invited to a church per shift. Several.
Wow.
It's several. Which is great. It's incredible that people are going to churches and stuff, but it starts to kind of, you get this kind of stigma or taste in your mouth, right? Where you're like, oh, it's another one of these tables. They're inviting me to a church. I got to say that I go to this church. And, you have that conversation. But Kristen kind of whooped us both into shape when we were at Prosper. She was telling me, she's like, look, Cody, we need to find a church. And it's sad that it got to a point where she was the one doing that because I just wasn't kind of holding my end of that deal up. I wasn't doing the right thing, in my opinion. So she came to me one day. She's like, Cody, I want to go to church. We need to figure this out. So we were living in Little Elm, working at Chili's and Prosper, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's find a church. So we start searching the area, and we test a couple of different churches, and they were good, but they weren't what we were looking for. It just didn't feel connected at these churches that we visited. And then one day, I don't know if it was a shift swap or somebody was like, oh, I think it might have been the time that somebody was watching our kid, and Chris and I were both able to work night shift, which works a lot better for money. You don't make too much in the morning. So we're working, I believe, a night shift together, and she comes up to me and she's like, hey, Cody, we gotta try this church out. I'm like, what is it? And she's like, this couple is so sweet. They've got the same diaper bag as us, and I really want to try out their church. And I was like, the diaper bag? Oh, gosh, Kristen was so obsessed with the diaper bags. She was all things fashion and diaper bags. I'm just like, just give me a backpack and dump it all in there. But little did we know it was the Dokes. And Brooke and Logan were at church, and they had, or excuse me, at Chili's, rather. I want to mix those two up. They were at Chili's. And I don't know how the experience went because I probably stayed far away from the table at the time. But she's like, yeah, these guys are cool. They're fun. And I want to give their church a shot. We haven't been there yet. It's called Parkway Hills. And I was like, okay, how far away from us is it? And it was a pretty good distance, I think, at the time from Little Elm there. It might have been 30 minutes, which in hindsight's not bad.
Yeah,
but
now.
But I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. And I mean, I'd never forget the first day at Parkway Hills. I will never forget it. We're circling the parking lot, and there's the first-time guest parking. Of course, we're like, no, don't park there. We're going to get bum rushed in the parking lot by the host team. First step, excuse me. So we parked probably in the way back, and we walk in, and Sarah Connor was there at the door on the host team, and she is like, come with me. And we're like, all right. We had the car seat. Weston was probably 6 months old. So it was around late 2019, 2020. And she pushed us into a life group. And it was really the life group. Not to say anything about.
No. Doesn't offend me at
But
all.
we-
But I got to go right now. So, no, I'm just kidding.
We get into life group. And I've just never been in a group where everybody's just so open and honest about what's going on in life. And not only was that a thing there, but also we shared a lot in common with the group. We've got a newborn. All these other people have newborns in the group, and as first-time parents, every day it's like, is the kid alive? Are we doing this right? Are they breathing? Like, we're trying to figure things out as we go. And having that group, I mean, I was telling Kristen, I was like, we got to go back. We got to get back in there because I've got something I want to ask. I've got these questions. I want to talk to these people. This is going on, that's going on. So we were going to life group, and it was just like, man, we felt so poured into. And then not only did we feel that way from the life group, but also from service with worship to, Josh's sermon, guest speakers that we have, we felt so shepherded, just so led, that there was so much growth encouraged in that short process, and it was just incredible. I could not stop. I just caught, it's almost like you just kind of catch fire for the word. Like you open it up and you can't put it down. Like we were learning things and I was just like, man, this is incredible. Someone would be up front and they'd be teaching on a subject. I don't know what we would have been going through, but the level of knowledge some of the teachers and you and all of these different leaders in the church had blew my mind. I had this very surface level understanding of the Bible. And the more we came to Parkway Hills, the more fed I was from getting to know who Christ was truly. Like you think you know the gospel and you think you know all these great things, and you sit down at a church that really cares about knowing you, informing you, right? Like we say, and then you go off and be sent. Like it's so evident in the teachers that we put in front of people that kind of leads into, I always look at my life in my testimony in phases. There's like, there's this testimony, and then now there's this testimony, and now we're in phase 3 of testimony 2, right? Like we're always in some form of testimony where we're learning, growing, doing the next thing, and I remember Adam Hines was teaching a life group one day he was teaching us one day, and at the end he made an announcement, and he's like, I really need some teachers, so if you're interested, we've kind of got this bullpen and we'd love to add you to it, just let us know. And I was sitting there with Kristen and I was like, I have got to go talk to him. I have to do this. I could not, like I was almost jumping off the edge of my seat to get the opportunity to teach the Bible to others. And I was like, please, like I hope he says yes. I remember I walked up to Adam and I was like, look, I'm sure you got a lot of talent. And I'd really love the opportunity to just give me one day at some point in time, whatever you want me to teach, I'll try, I'll do my best. And Adam was just like, oh yeah, come on, let's go. And he's like, hey, what's your number? Let's put you on the group
Let's
chat.
be fair, I don't think Adam's ever that enthusiastic.
Never, yep. I'm telling you.
So it's a lot more even keeled than that. Yeah.
This is my version of Adam.
Yeah.
But he was like, let's do this. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I remember we left that day, that life group, and I was like, hey, I think I might have a shot. I think I might get the opportunity to teach. And I mean, it's crazy too, the excitement felt from getting the opportunity to teach inside of a life group, and then also equally the fear in that, I'm teaching people about Jesus. I can't mess this up. I can't get this wrong. So as I taught and I grew in that, I found myself weekly, I would be waking up. So we live a little bit further away from the church than most people, but I would prepare this class on a subject, and I would be praying through it and reading through it and trying to figure it out and seeing how this is, what we need to hear from this. What's the Bible telling us here? What's God speaking? And I would set an alarm for 4 a.m. and I'd wake up after preparing all week, and I'd wake up and I had this big iPad. It's one of the 12-inch iPads, and I would walk around the neighborhood at 4 o'clock in the morning, hoping not to get attacked or shot at in my neighborhood because we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I've got this screen blasting in my face, and I'm sure if anybody's awake and they saw me, they're like, "Uh-oh, what's this guy doing? This creeper." But I was sitting there practicing, working through that class before I presented that class to the life group, and I just, it's fun to see the phases that I went through from understanding what I knew in the past to, boy, this is getting me fired up. Everything I'm learning, I can't put this stuff down, to I can't wait to teach it, to now, oh my goodness, I have to teach this, and I've got to figure this out. I've got to do this right. I can't mess it up. So I'd go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, figuring this lesson out, reading through it, trying to understand it well, going through commentaries, putting it together, and then walking around the neighborhood at 4 a.m. a couple laps and talking it out loud, all while these floodlights are going off and these Amazon cameras. Hi, you are currently being recorded. You know those things?
The voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like,
and I'm like, please, it's okay. Everything's great. I'm a nice guy. I'm just trying to teach Jesus or this morning, rather. So that's kind of where things really started to stir up in me. And I did that for probably a year, maybe a little bit longer. And I remember Cy Casto calling one day. And I was like, who is this guy? And he called me one day and he's like, hey, Cody, do you want to meet up sometime by chance? You got any interest in being upstairs in the student ministry? And before he had said anything, I had never even thought about being upstairs in the student ministry. I was almost disconnected is not the right word, but didn't see him, didn't know him. I knew they were doing their thing, but I wasn't. I was more on the adult life group side. And he called me on the phone, and he asked me that question, and I was like, I'm in. Sign me up. I'm in. I'll do this. Any chance that I get to teach somewhere, sign me up. I didn't realize at the time that I was stretching myself then, but now as I look back, I'm like, goodness gracious, I need to pump the brakes on some of those things. But I couldn't, like I said, I just couldn't stop. I couldn't put it down. So Cy's like super confused by the phone call because I don't think he ever had a response that fast. But he's like, well, hang on, is your wife cool? And I was like, Kristen's going to love this. Let's sign me up. And he's like, well, can we put her in the phone call too? And I was at a Starbucks somewhere working, and so I can't remember. I don't think she was with me. I think we roped her into a call, all three of us, and I was like, hey, this guy Cy, he wants to know if we want to teach in student life groups. Are you in? She's like, are you in? I was like, I'm in. Are you in? She's like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. And so next thing you know, we were student life group leaders, which when I started to do the student side of things, I was like, whoa, this is way different than the adult side of things. We're still teaching the same information, but the students, it's like raw. These minds, it's crazy to try and produce a message that they want to hear and need to hear. Because, inside of the life groups, right, Pastor Cy, he had everything set out for us and cut to the side. And so I had to take this message and be like, okay, cool, how do I get this over? I was blessed to be able to serve with the middle school boys. Oh boy. Still really am.
That's awesome.
And we walked in that room and I could not believe, the setting that is being an adult life group leader for students. It was nuts. And I was like, hey, we got to talk about this stuff. And they're just like, whatever, Cody. It's like, wait, hang on, y'all. I want to tell you some stuff. So it was just a much different experience in teaching adults. But what was really cool was that because of my time in the adult life groups, I went from knowing those parents to then getting to know their kids. And I had no idea at the time, and I started making connections as I started to kind of, because you got to be different upstairs. It's wild. Y'all both know, you've been with students before. You got to be different. You can't just go up there and expect things to work out all the same. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And so as I started to see these kids, I'm like, wait a second. Your last name, you're so-and-so's kid? And they're like, yeah. And then I got a whole new angle on you now, dude. And I'm like, I'm best friends with your dad. He's a cool guy. And then, things start to change in my favor. So I got to really relate to these kids. And, as we go on and as we move through the years, not only am I connecting with the middle school boys and the middle school girls, but then I start to get to know these high schoolers and more about their lives and stuff. And man, what Cy has set up for these students has been just next level. The way that we upstairs have really honestly made disciples out of these middle school and high school students is just crazy. Been able to be so gospel-centered in the message. I mean, I've been, I've grown up in a youth group, and I've dabbled in different pieces of youth and college ministries and adult ministries and stuff like that in the past, but to see hey, this is the foundation. This is the center of all things, right? Christ. And see that just on full display upstairs was insane. It was just incredible. And these kids, their biblical literacy from the years that they've been upstairs and the kind of curriculums that were molded to help assist them, I just can't believe it. Some of the things that they know, some of the words that they know, some of these different theology definitions that some of these kids understand, I'm beside myself at some of the conversations we've had.
And man, what I think is so cool is just watching that journey and watching you grow with the students and growing your heart for ministry. And dude, it's so cool to see how God's using that today to call you into this next season, and how God has equipped you really your whole life to prepare for this. And it's so cool to see your heart for these students and for just the ministry. And now going to seminary and all that other things too.
Boy,
Like,
yeah.
You never stop, do you?
Nope.
Man, again, it's so encouraging. And Josh, you can kind of speak to this a little bit as the pastor and having kids not only in the student ministry, but come through the student ministry, just how cool it is to see this time together. And man, I appreciate your story.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Love the opportunity to tell it.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting. It's exciting to see. And as we mentioned, and you mentioned Cy in this, and I love his intentionality, and I love that baton handoff, if you will, and getting to think about it in that way of keeping that discipleship focus, that gospel-centeredness as a part of the story. Because you mentioned the Xbox, how you got connected back in. And while that student ministries try different things, things happen, and not to speak any churches, but really, what we all need is Jesus and a relationship with Him, and to have that be the focal point, and for that to really be what our student ministry, what our church is all about. And I just get excited, man, to see those next steps in what's going to happen in y'all's story, and then in the life of our church as we continue to make disciples of every generation, serve the world with the gospel, and all of that to the glory of God.
So cool. Cody, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for sharing
Thanks,
your
Cody.
story.
Here's to many more years.
That's right.